All right, everybody. It's the Jerry Metcalf podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today on the show is a long overdue guest to be on the show, Marilyn Wright of Asheville, North Carolina, with, of course, Sotheby's International Realty. Marilyn, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
So, y'all, this woman, I'm just going to go ahead and tout you for a minute and then you can fill in some blanks. But she is in Asheville, North Carolina, a market where people don't always think of the biggest price points. And yet she is the first agent to have sold, I think you're the first to have sold, and maybe the only to have sold over 100 million in that market. You are the only, every transaction in Western North Carolina over 7 million, you have been an agent representing one or both sides of. And you're an agent in a market where you did that when everybody else said it wasn't possible.
That is so true. That's such a blessing too.
I think I want everybody to hear that about you. And there's so much more. I mean, I think you've got a recent sale of almost 10 million as well. Mm-hmm. And this is in a market, we're not talking about, Manhattan or LA or South Florida. And so, I mean, there's so much to ask about that. Before I dive in too deep, fill in some blanks for us. Tell us why and how you got here. And did you even ever think it was going to look like this?
I think I'll have to back up and say, and I won't talk about brands or anything, but I attended a summit when I first joined Sotheby's. And at that summit, there was an owner who got up and told her story and humble beginnings, which I can relate to. My family's not extremely affluent. But we've had an incredible family, an incredible life. But at the same time, I sat there and my eyes were open to a world that I had never imagined. We do not, agent after agent went across that parade and the stage, and she awarded them a trophy for their sales. And it was 100 million, 100 million, 100 million. And I just took a deep breath and backed up and thought, we're not that market. As you said, it's not even like Georgia. Our average sale is 450,000 to 500,000. And when you think about that, it just seems so far away. I'm not a team. I have one licensed assistant, and I just hired, and she's actually an individual agent who does some of her own business. And then I have just hired an unlicensed executive assistant who just handles my, emails and things like that. But that just started. So I came home and I knew I had to hire a coach, someone to work with, and who had done this before. And by that step, I just started implementing some principles of time blocking, always showing up. I don't always feel like showing up, and I may show up sometimes in my leggings, but just in my office. But with that said, every day showing up and showing up early, getting those gratitudes. I have so much to be grateful for, but that's a crucial piece of who I am. I have my devotion time, and I try to get those phone calls started right at 9 to get those knocked out. And, I had an agent at one of the events I attended once said, when you get knocked down, and he had just lost a transaction of about 16 million. I couldn't fathom that. But he said, you need to cry, kick, scream, 24 hours, get it out of your system, and don't look back. Because if you're very driven, once you start getting lost and woe is me, you totally lose your focus and momentum. And as a woman, everyone's not like me, I know, but I can go south so fast of why it's not going to work. And so I've had to change my mindset to how it is going to work. Looking at something is, how can I turn this around and make it happen? And I think, I have a lot of tenacity and grit, and I'm not pushy, but I am a pusher. And so I have to back up and look at something. How can I get this done? And every day I strategize where I'm at I've broken up and I am doing a 12-week year sort of. So I'm trying to get balance back to my life because honestly, I don't have balance. A lot of people talk about that and say, oh, I've got balance and doing this. I'm going to be the first to say I'm striving for balance.
You know,
And
yeah. What's funny is there's so many things. I mean, we could write a book on that, on all of what you just said, and put it in about 7 chapters. So just, we'll go backwards, but talking about balance, I've never interviewed an agent who said, I'm off these hours and on these hours, and people just deal with it. It's a nice idea. It's a nice idea. I've yet to find, now I found the agent who can live that through leverage, and there's still balance. Is the balance. I remember I had somebody said, balance is the thing that you recognize when real estate is your life and you find the peace in that and you find the enjoyment in that rather than trying to separate everything. Because the minute you trying to start trying to separate it, you lose the very opportunities. Like the minute you fall, as you were talking about, it's in that falling that the opportunity lies. When you just said, rather than look at why this isn't going to work, the universe answers the questions you give it. Start asking it why this is going to work.
mhm,
Looking for the parts that are going to come together. And without failure, we can't learn, we can't learn without failure and problems. There's no opportunity or need to show up and help other people, hence no value. The irony, right?
mhm. Right. That's exactly right.
So you talked about, I think we should name where and what this was. You were at an event and you were watching people over and over at this brokerage who were selling over 100 million. And I believe it was the brokerage of Maya de la Vega.
It
Is that
was.
right?
I
Yeah.
would have to say yes, and she's the one who changed my life actually that day because I sat there and thought, similar background, goals. My achievements have not been as great as her. She's changed that brand for her and her family. And as we work and work these crazy hours, I think at the end of the day, there's a goal and there's a reason we're doing what we're doing. But she had recognized, and celebrated with her agents, and at that time, no one in our market had ever sold over 35 or 36 million, I think it was. I came home and sat down and started going back. What is the top number? So I looked at that number and I made 60 million my goal. And I'm tracking, and I'll tell you my secrets. I have a chart and it's where of 100 blocks and where I'm at on that chart. And just tracking that and looking at it, oh, I'm just 40 away. Think about that, 40 million, that's a lot away. But still, it wasn't impossible then.
Yeah.
And when you take baby bites to get there, you can get there. And so, first I went to 64 million, then everything turned with COVID, and I went to 113 million. And I will tell you, the day I have picked up that check and took to the office and I crossed that 100 million,
Wow.
it's a big deal. If everybody around you takes 8 people to do that, which we have that now, and I still, we're at 93, I think last year, it's a big achievement. And we talked about, the piece of getting into the high end market. And this is what I would say to other agents. I don't care where you're at, uh, what price point you're selling, but oftentimes really bad things that happen in your life and in your career will get you where you need to be.
So when you said I walked up there and I sold
I
100,
just crossed that 100
but
million and I saw my broker in charge and we all sort of had tears and
but
celebration.
there's something, it's because people talk about that 113 million is more than the money. It means something. When you accomplish that, there's something it told you. What did that do for you?
Mm. Well, then I got a new goal. Sadly, that's the next thing. We
But
all do.
before that goal in that moment, when you feel that and it pulls at you, that there's something that pulls you beyond the money. It's the you are good enough. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's something that it told you about you and about this world that brings tears. What do you think it is?
I think it's knowing that I could do something that no one else had done in our region. And I'm not an owner, I'm just an agent. And I think that I am very blessed to work in the upper realm. And but I think too, it is again to that grit and tenacity and believing in myself
That
and taking, I mean, when she had that in front of me, and we're not that Florida market, but it just suddenly resonated that I can do this. This is possible. And often I think that there's self-talk within our mind that we talk ourselves out of a lot of things that we can actually achieve if we just keep pushing.
wow. And the word that, or the one liner that resonates for me as I hear you, I think is for you is it that dreams do come true.
Mm.
They do come true.
And you can achieve your goals, whether it's in real estate, but in home and in life. I spoke of a very bad situation happened to us that got me into real estate back in 2008. Tim and I had about 5 million in spec houses, and the on-site sales agents didn't know what to do when people were not walking in. And we were losing $39,000 a month. And I love construction. I will not deny that. I love that. He would get the foundation in and I would take it from there. And but arguing about the loss of money, what we're going to do, how to manage the agents. And he just said, one day, why don't you get your big girl pants on and do something about it and, just stop. And I did. And I got everything sold. And that was horrible. If I go back and say how bad that was, that period for us and the stress upon us, we had 3 kids at home and 1 in private school. And it was just a hard point. And it just made me realize, looking back, had that horrible thing not happened to us and I got back up and started, I wouldn't be where I am today. So, that one agent who's, and Ty is extremely successful, but said that one time, and I'll never forget that. Give yourself 24 hours. I've done that. I just had a hard situation lately that I had to deal with, and it was humbling, gut-wrenching, infuriating. Gave myself 24 hours and I'm over it. Good luck with it. And,
Yeah.
it's, you have to just keep
Move
focused.
forward, focus. And focus, that's like you said earlier, you said something about, being someone, it's interesting when you've got that kind of focus, you could take you in either direction. You could quickly get negative, and taking that and making the decision to go the other direction instead of reinforcing everything that looks like it's not going to work, start focusing on what will and how. Now,
Exactly.
on that, I want to hop on for a minute because I know everybody listening is going to want to touch on this. You were talking about, at that 30 million, the 36 million was the most, and your goal was 60. You hit 64, and then you hit 113 million. And as you did that, I think it was really interesting, and it reminds me of, we talk about it in Breakthrough Luxury. You wrote down what I need to accomplish. And then you wrote down and looked at it, we call it the pipeline process, but you wrote down and looked at, this is the big picture. This is what I need to accomplish. This is what I need to do it. And then you went back and said, okay, I've got the big picture. And then you went back and took the time to live it and do it one day and one habit at a time. Now, in that, some people would say, well, I've done that, it didn't work. And some people say it does. For you, what I'm hearing is you mentally took ownership of it, and in that it changed what you did. Walk us through the experience of that emotionally, mentally, and in the actual actions and habits of your life, and how the experience of all of that changed for you.
Well, just hyper focus. I mean, you put it in front of you, but you do hyper focus. And that's why the time blocking and making sure you do those things that keep you centered and focused. Because if you don't have the exercise and you don't have those things that are most important, that's when I find that if I get out of that, then suddenly I lose my focus and I start slipping. And you have to catch yourself. And there are factors in the economy that play into our business And the best advice I can say is try not to give it thought. I
Oh,
don't watch the news. I don't, and that's hard for a lot of people. I read what I need to read, but simply because you can start letting that dictate what's happening in your life and in your,
isn't it amazing? Yeah.
Mhm. Because
I
it's
stopped watching.
fear.
Yeah.
Yes. And
I stopped
so
watching the
there's,
news a long time ago.
yeah, that's another piece I think that's hugely important for success and for happiness, actually. But I will say, what success looks like for me and for each of us is totally different. And we're all in different paths. And every time I speak, I reiterate that because if you've got 3 kids at home or 2 kids at home, or, like for Tim and I now, we're empty nesters, it's the ideal time for me to be, full force, steam ahead for my career for a period. But at the end of the day, my goal is to have a very happy family, successful family, and enjoy the time I have with them.
Now, some people would say, it's so funny, my kids are grown, now it's time to go. Some people would go, no, 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 Marilyn, now it's time to relax.
I'm just a different person. I mean, I have been so blessed. I stayed at home with our kids. I was everything at school, involved, named the local elementary school, Hominy Valley. I mean, we have been so involved in our children's life. Then we had our business that I ran, and he did the backside. And then when I moved into real estate, it's just been different sections of life, and I've been very, very blessed because you
Yeah.
don't
Well,
get the kids back.
here's and something so you remind me what year, how many years have you been doing? You've been doing this for a while now.
2008.
Yeah. So I remember us meeting in Austin, Texas. What year was it? You'd already been in business it had to be 2016, 17.
I've
So
been with this brand about 8 years, so it had to be in that time
I think
frame.
you had just come on, and I remember we met for a minute and spoke, and that was the first time it was there, or maybe it was in South Florida too. But anyway, for one Sotheby's. But all that being said, as we look at as you look at this, it's so powerful to think that a lot of women, I don't always like to get on the woman topic, but in the context of your story, it is so relevant. You were a mother who took care of your children. You helped run a family business. You were building homes, and then you became a real estate agent. And you didn't just become it's not the housewife's job, especially not anymore. You became the top real estate agent in
Mhm.
Asheville, and look at the records that you've broken. I mean, unbelievable. When you came into this, did you know? I mean, at first you came into this as a way to. You seem like somebody who likes to thrive, but the first move, I think it was one to survive, right?
It was.
And
And
so,
I
how did that
joined the
evolve
local
into?
firm, and in that local firm, the first 6 months in that 08, 09 period, I won their rising star because I came in and everybody else had sort of, oh, it's bad, nothing's happening. And I was like, just like this. And it's just like in COVID. And that's when
Mm,
COVID started. Everybody sort of stepped back, and I was like, this is an opportunity. And I showed up in a different manner. And I have a great home office now because I just moved home and just kept things going. And people still, that's something that we need to remember every day. People still need to move no matter what's happening in the election or the economy. And if you just keep that in mind and don't buy in, it's still going to happen for you.
there's always a market. It's
Hmm.
about positioning yourself for the market that exists.
Hmm.
There's always people that need you, and the bigger the problem, the bigger the need. Like,
Right.
coming out of the Great Recession, I was an agent at that time, and I remember I didn't know it yet. I just remember I was just hungry like you, and just finding that it's like, you've got to find where people need you, supply and
Right.
demand. And when you understand that and look for the opportunity, you always get in front of it. And it's funny how the competition is just not there.
Mm-mm.
There is
That's
no
exactly
competition.
right.
When you look back, I mean, you've had the stage of breaking in. So you broke into this business, and your focus was, I've got something to get done. There was
Mhm.
no time to think about how hard things were. You were hopping in to do something.
Mhm.
As you broke into real estate in the beginning, what did you find was the biggest challenge and the biggest surprise?
Mhm.
And what year was that, about 2010?
No, it was about 2008. The
Oh, that's
biggest
right, you said
challenge
that.
for me was getting those sold, I think, but in a market where things weren't moving, I even got very creative. Went sat down with a local bank at that time and talked to them about what I was seeing in the market, even as a new agent. But I had different eyes because we're a business and a builder. And a lot of builders started walking away, and my husband and I sat down, and he's like, we've always been people who do what we say we're going to do. I'm not walking away. We'll do what we have to do to make it through this. And so we sat down and talked, and actually met with the president of the bank, and we talked about what we could do. And so in turn, they hired me because they utilized my services to first sell some of their foreclosures. And then I said, they took me, I had to meet at a door one day, and there was a mom standing there with the little kids standing around her. And we were with the sheriff's department, of course, and the bank was serving her. Got in the car, and I told them, never doing this again. And he looked at me, and I said, that child looked at me. I'm not doing this. I can't do this. So I think that here's what we need to do. And I so went back, and they had a meeting, and I said, let me, from the moment they get behind, let me start working with them, because I think I can make more money for you selling up front and save you money. And it worked. And so I didn't do everything, but 95% of it and I was saving them from going to foreclosure and making them money. So that
And saving people from being kicked out of their homes.
going through the foreclosure process. So I did meet with them over the phone, but we did see what we could do to strategically work through the process. And the sooner, and that's what I tell folks now, if you'll tell me exactly where you're at and what's going on in life, I can make this work. And so that was, again, thinking outside of the box, not like everyone else. And
Getting
that's
at you is that was literally an example of getting ahead of the market. I think a lot of times people see something bad happen. It's like the car accident people run away from. And
mhm,
you saw what you didn't like, and you didn't let a good crisis go wasted.
mhm.
You stepped up and you said, okay, there's a problem, and the way this is being handled isn't helping, it's not helping anyone. So you got ahead of it. And I mean, that is unbelievable that you had I guess having the empathy for people going through that, having the understanding of how banks work. But it's funny how you were the one that stood up and said something. How did you know that they would go for it?
I
Or
didn't.
did,
The national banks really did not have this ability to do so. I just worked for a couple of those for a little bit, but the local banks that had done lots of construction loans, I knew the loan processors very well. I knew the president of the bank and through local events. But that meeting of sitting down with the board and saying, I would suggest that we do this, because as soon as you realize that first missed payment, you have to pick up that phone and you have the call with them, and then bring me in. If not, let me do analysis on the house. Let me see what we can do at that time and how we can get them out whole rather than going through the foreclosure process. And most everyone was agreeable to that, and it saved them a lot of money. They're a very hands-on, very profitable bank to this day. They've changed names, but those folks I have very good respect for and relationships with today as
and
well.
think about the opportunities that had to build for you, as you kind of just insinuated, for your whole career.
Mhm,
So that presented itself. You basically helped people figure out how to negotiate with the bank to get back on top of things, or short sell so they don't have a foreclosure and they can actually go rent a property and not be so damaged and be thrown out in the street, which is so much more expensive from an eviction.
mhm.
So take us from that. So you learned how to do that, not even knowing what you were walking into. And then what happened? What was
And
next?
then it wasn't long until after that, a few years. And like I said, I was one of the first. Lynn Hathcock in our office was the first recruit with my brand. And then I came in next. And I came there because we like to travel. And anytime that you're traveling, when you see it doesn't have to be the biggest, it's presentation. And so that resonated with me. And the fact that, and that's what I would tell anyone, you connect with what resonates with you and your life. And, but the connectivity throughout that network and learning, I would say it's such a crucial piece
Now,
to,
you were talking about Sotheby's, or yeah, we could talk
yes.
about, so we're not a Sotheby's commercial, but we could talk about Sotheby's.
Well, the
Everybody, I
connectivity,
think Marilyn's trying to make sure we don't sound like a Sotheby's commercial.
I know, I don't want to say that, but it's like that event near
Right.
you and the
Yeah.
opportunity to learn from some of the top agents in the country, not just the
Yeah.
company. And I don't care the brand. I'm a learner. I'm a lifelong learner and I don't know it all. And so I am quite coachable in that aspect, and the opportunity to sit down with those that you admire and their work. We do have the icon agents that I call them, and that they've achieved what doesn't even seem a possibility in our market. But I think that I'm happy that to say that I'm doing that at a lower price point here. But I think that everything that got me there to this point has been, like I said, just the background in construction. And I have relationships with incredible appraisers that do some of the highest end properties. And that's crucial for any agent, because when you're selling a unicorn or unique property, it's good to have that conversation and just double check yourself, because that's the only way sometimes these things make sense.
Well, it's the relationships and opportunities are everywhere. They're not just in the quote unquote referral or in the call or in the lucky bump into you got, but they're in the relationships you develop, the knowledge you have, the seeing of problems and how to get in front of them and be a resource to people. And then the opportunities are, it's like there's the surface of the world as we see it, and then there's just the layers of opportunities beneath if we just take the time to open our eyes and see them.
Mhm.
Now, so your business grew from helping short sales with, well, first of all, your husband was a builder. Then you're helping people just not foreclosing their homes in 2008, 9, and probably 10. And then, fast forward, we're now talking about the woman who was the first woman to sell over 100 million in her market. Every transaction over 7 million, you have been an agent on in your market and in all of Western North Carolina. And you're quite the high-end record-breaking luxury agent now. What was it? Was there's a pivot point of believing it? And then what was the experience of the transactions? Was there a moment when you went, oh yeah, here I've arrived? Was it gradual? Was there that moment
Yeah,
where
there
you
was a
realized this is
house on
real?
East in this neighborhood. I did target the most expensive communities in the area. And there was a listing appointment that they reached out to me on, and I'm good friends with them now to this day. He's a doctor here in town, and
So wait,
uh,
so there's a homeowner, and it's so you're targeting an expensive neighborhood,
yes, and they
and a
reached
homeowner
out to
you
call
don't
me.
know, that you don't
Mhm.
know them, you do now, so you don't know them. And had you sold anything in the neighborhood yet?
A couple of things, but not at this
Okay.
level. And so,
Okay, so they reach out, bring us home, tell us the story. We want to we want to experience it like you did. So this homeowner you did not know at the time calls
yeah.
you. What happens?
Well, it's Kenny and the vet, and I pull in, so I show up, and I will tell you, and I'm telling everybody, I cried in the driveway. It's a beautiful house to this day. I think I've sold everything around it on the street. But anyway, it was that aha moment. I'm here. And if you don't do a happy dance outside of a house occasionally or something like that, maybe you're cold. But it was the thrill. I love the thrill of the hunt. I'm not kidding. I love that. I'm very driven. And I show up and go in and sit down with them and walk through. We go through my process, what I do. They walk me through the house, and there's some changes, pretty significant changes. They've been on the market for 2 years with another agent, and I said, we need to do some things to get us ready. They lived in the home for 30 years, and it's a beautiful family home, and big house, and So they made those changes, and then I got that house sold relatively quickly after that. But they have became lifelong friends. Kenny is the only one that read my listing agreement every page. And then I had to come back and he made edits to it because he, for his practice, reads all the contracts. That is the only time that that's ever happened. I've had it with the contracts, but the neighbor across the street did the contract. But that was the first one that I had to sit there and him go through the entire, thing and then come back with a few changes, had to get approval for those. But, that was when I feel like that was that one moment that everything turned for me.
So you pull up in the driveway and you cried. And it was, I think it was tears of joy and
Oh,
gratitude.
yes, I'm
And you
here.
hadn't even won the listing yet.
No, I'm
I
just
love
here.
that. You were just grateful to be there. You were just grateful to be considered. I mean, how beautiful is that? And I think that's the gratitude that you show up with and not entitlement. I mean, that just says so much about what makes somebody hireable, what makes somebody, you know, I would say coachable, but to make sure it's someone who's always learning and growing. When you have the gratitude for opportunities like that, and then you walk in. Now, what are you thinking when you walk in the door? Because do you know you've got this, or are you thinking
No,
this,
no.
or
And that's the one thing I would say even today. I'm not, I'm confident, but I'm not arrogant. You stop and realize that each homeowner probably knows 8 to 10 realtors. And they can be shopping you to see what you're doing. I have had that happen recently, and I knew it in my gut, but I kept thinking I can work this, and they were shopping me, and for their realtor, and the reason I know that is their realtor showed up with what I do verbatim, and I thought I shouldn't have left that, but it's okay. It just means I have to do something a little different, get a little better. But, we went through that and they were tired of what they had worked with. And I think they knew that with my commitment to them that I would turn it, and I did. And I would say that's the one thing I would say. I am confident, but I am not arrogant. I know usually in these meetings they have me there for a reason, but at the same time, I'm not.
I think a lot of times the moment somebody gets arrogant, for some people it doesn't seem to work this way, but for a lot of people, the moment you get arrogant, it's like that's the first step to trouble. Um, how do you keep yourself out of that space? It's easy. I mean, as a human being, it's easy to have the success you've had is really, I mean, you've gotten ahead of the market. With that kind of success, how do you stay humble?
Just where I came from. I'm so blessed. And you start every morning, I've got about 40 things I wrote down just like that this morning. But, I'm just hungry.
Are you
I
really?
was.
But right, well, and hungry because you're successful. What drives you? What's the hunger?
I don't ever want to be poor. I don't want to ever be without. And, I have seen some of the wealthiest people in our region go broke. And,
Yeah,
you don't ever think it can happen to you if you overextend yourselves. And I'm not doing that, so I'm going to stay humble and I'm going to work extremely hard. And, my goals may change and look a little different. And people think, what is she doing? But it's not without a plan. I'll tell you that, but, your plans can change today.
yeah,
So, priorities with a sickness or something, you never know. So it's such a gift to be where I am. And we all, that's why I like to remind everybody's success looks a little different, but it's still success for them.
yeah. You said something important about, you've been doing this since 2008 as a real estate agent. You were a builder before, and all of that, life happens. Life didn't stop happening to you, but you've still accomplished great things. In that, when life comes at you again and again, it's interesting how the pattern that I'm hearing is when a problem happens, you say and recognize, you have the ability to see how awful it could be, and or but in that you shift it to how great it could be. You shift it to the opportunity in the problem. Is that
Mhm.
is that
Yeah,
right? Is that what
you
you?
have to because no one's going to show up and fix it for you. It usually is in your lap. It's served to you. How are you going to receive it now? You take the really bad and okay, it's really bad, but this whole thing that Ty spoke that time, I actually apply it to every area. This is super bad. I can't believe this happened. I go through that process and then I catch myself, and I think it's important to do so. We've got a really good friend we're building a house who's a good neighbor, but she's been sick probably for 5 years, and she's a tiger. And I mean, she's a fighter. And I think that she's dealt a lot of bad that she probably doesn't share with us, but she looks at it, faces it. How am I going to get beyond this? And I think that in every area, you just have to address it.
As you've been doing this for so long, what is your secret sauce? Is it the difficult conversations? Is it the listing appointment? Is it buyers? Is it, if you had to pinpoint it to like that one thing that you just master?
Buyers.
Mm.
You give me a buyer. I know this region like no other. And so it's a gift because I've got a process in place that I go through and I know where they need to be, but I'm going to educate them on the region, which is not really that hard to cover from the areas that I cover. But anyway, you know, um, knowing where they need to be, what
All
they're
right. Well,
actually looking
thanks.
for.
Let's talk about that because we've probably got a lot of real estate agents going, what do you mean? So a buyer comes in, they think they know what they want, or they, my experience is they usually don't. I can usually hear what they want, but I can't tell them what they want. I need to walk them through, they need to experience but how do you do that?
That's an education process, I call it, and also the process of elimination by viewing properties and locations. It's not long by spending those 3 hours, and I'll tell each one moving to our area, I need 3 hours of your time, 2 to 3. I'm going to educate you on the region. You likely will not want to buy in all of these areas, but I never want a client to look at me and say, you didn't show this to me, you didn't talk about this. And by doing this, two things come from. They know the area very well when we're through, but also by looking at maybe one property in those different areas, it gives them a good idea about gauge on pricing of homes. And I just had a house across the lake from us here. I got under contract, and those folks, we had not met person to person, but based on our conversation, I knew where she needed to be, focused on that community that kept looking at kept houses. We talked about every other day by email about different properties. And then when they were coming to town last week, and one house came on the market, and we actually emailed each other at the same time. You got to see this house. I want to see this house. And we go to the house, and already it's one day on the market, and it's in a multiple offer situation. And because of the process of discussing and viewing, even though it was online, and I was like, they knew the price, the house had not been properly priced, and they were willing to go well over asking. And so we got it, and they're thrilled. And I'm happy for them because it's exactly what they were looking for, not in the neighborhood they thought, but it's just a little more relaxed, and that's what they needed. So the living environment. So it just worked out perfectly, and they're thrilled. I mean, they literally came to town for 2 days, looked at that house, put in the offer, came back the next morning at 10 o'clock, got on a plane and flew back to Texas. And but it's just that process of, I feel like, just giving them a very good education about where their lifestyle is best fitted. And they did not just want to be out on land. They actually wanted an active community.
Well, also just being somebody who's reflecting back on being an agent for almost 20 years is that the process of doing that secures you an actual client for a buyer, not somebody showing a house and hoping to like win the deal like we're playing the lottery. It also gives you insights and education to list properties now and in the long run over all of the buyers and how well you represent them.
Mhm.
You said it's a 3 hour process. Is that they get to meet you and there's a 3 hour process to get to to know the market, 3 hour process, or what are we talking about there?
Yes, I call it my tour. And by the tour, we usually can do it 2.5 to 3, but I like to do that even though I know where they need to be, because again, it's
They
usually
need to
our
know.
investment, and I don't want them to ever. I've never had a client come back and say, "You didn't show me this." And by doing this, I'm sure that I'm covering it with them. But I also know typically, where the best fit is. Being here, my family's been here 8 generations, and
Wow.
I cover the region, and I'm knowledgeable of the region. So I'm confident in saying that.
I should have introduced you as the Queen of Asheville, North Carolina.
Thank you. I'll take it.
I, really, it's like it makes me think of like Queen Elizabeth in England. Like
No, I'm not there.
I don't know, but I think about like how long and how much insight and how much experience, and then the influence and being humble and all of that. It's so powerful.
Thank
All
you.
right, one more question, then I want to start the final three. Um, what has been your just biggest like aha? Like I didn't know that, never thought about that in being a real estate agent. Your biggest epiphany might be the word.
That rejection is protection.
Whoa. Rejection is protection. Do you have a story that comes to mind you
Mm,
wouldn't mind sharing?
um, have you ever had a nutso client? And in that first, I mean, sorry, realtors, you know what I'm talking about. That first appointment,
That's who's listening, so you're good. Yeah, yeah.
so you think, I can manage this. Oh, he's hard. I've managed worse. Oh, I can do this. And you walk away and think, I can manage this. And you get into it and you're thinking, what was I thinking? And that's why I say sometimes I would say to you, if you're in an instance and you go in and you don't get the listing, it's protection. Not always, but some you get a sense in your gut, and you need to listen to your gut and to your instinct, because there's no amount of marketing, advertising, phone calls, texting with them is going to make it if it's more of a control situation. And if you sense that, you need to be okay that you didn't get
Wow, I love rejection is protection.
it.
That is what a great way to just go, okay, next.
Mhm.
Final three questions. When you think about your success, if you pinpointed your this is Marilyn Wright's greatest resource in her success, what is it?
Tenacity.
Mm.
Good. I don't quit.
And I would say perspective is you always shift your perspective.
Mhm.
In a
But
market where
that's a
nobody had sold over 36 million, you had the tenacity and perspective to turn that into 113.
mhm.
Like, wow.
But isn't it interesting that I never even thought it was a possibility until it was in front of me, till it was undeniably in front of me. I was like, they really did this. I can do this.
It's like, what
And
am I
I think
waiting for?
sometimes we sort of have to the self-talk is a crucial piece of our business,
Mm,
of our goals.
so true. Um, it makes me think about, I won't go to, but we do this a lot in the coaching is there's values and there's what we believe about ourselves. And there's when those are out of whack, everything's out of whack. And when those are aligned, what we value is who we are.
Yeah,
And if what until we can truly, on a subconscious level, align to who we are, things get stuck.
that's exactly right. That's
Question
exactly right.
question number two. What is a book that has just changed your life? Doesn't have to be business, it could be personal, but what is a book that we've got to read?
Well, I'm working hard. There's going to be two. I have a devotion book that I read every day, and right now I'm reading Speak the Blessing. I have to work extremely hard on my mindset. But the next one, I would say the biggie for me is trying to, and it's the only reason I'm focused on is the 12-week year, is trying to get a little vacation and life back, because I've lost that in this craziness. And so that forced 12 weeks up, you got to have your 2-week vacation. I'm really trying to do that because I
Yeah.
want to live it and enjoying it. So I am taking some steps, to hire, people, to work to help me give just a little bit of that we can enjoy Tim and I can enjoy our time together.
So there's two in there. There's the 12-week. That's a book, isn't it? The 12-week
Yes,
year.
it
So I think
is.
I almost did that and something happened, but I'm gonna take a look at that. But it's the 12-week year, and then the other one was about blessings or devotional book.
Yes, it's just my devotions. I read,
Okay.
I
What's the
listen.
name of it?
It is Speak the Blessing right now is the
Speak
one
the
I'm
blessing.
send your words into the direction you want your life to go. And your words are dictating, it's that same, I can speak for both of those, changing your mindset about what you can do. And the piece of, I've got a board over there that, they talk about the vision board, but the things that we enjoy and we love is trying to have more of that. It's not about the money, it's trying to change life. And there's just there's more than just the money piece for me. And
Live who
so,
you are.
yeah. And so that 12-week year is just hopefully is going to give me the balance that I'm looking for. That's why I'm doing it, but also that manifesting what you hope and dream. Once you see it, you can do it. And that
You are
was,
living proof.
yeah,
I love how that's, I think it's so cool to have somebody who's, all that you've done, and you're like, I really struggle with my mindset. I'm like, I love that. I mean, I don't love that you struggle with it, but the reality is, we all
mm,
do. It's like you can accomplish all of this, and you've still got to work on yourself.
mm,
It's like people, recently I was having a conversation with somebody, and they're like, I think kids like think they're going to grow up and then they're going to have it all figured out. But the reality is, we're always figuring it out. We're
right.
always growing. We're always
Mm.
learning. We're always changing. We're always evolving, and new problems are always coming up. It's just the journey.
With what's happening in real estate, with everything that's coming down the pipeline, I think the key to all of our success is thinking outside of the box. How can we take this negative situation that we may be fed and keep moving and progressing through this?
Well, and I don't know if this is what you're referencing, but if you're talking about Sitzer Burnett, I think there's some huge opportunity in this.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
huge opportunity because what they're saying in the media, just check out sitzer-burnett.breakthroughluxury.com. But what they're talking about in the media is not exactly what's going on in the courtroom.
Exactly.
And what we're getting afraid of, back to focusing on what can go wrong, isn't even really the focus or the problem. It's something completely different.
It is. You're exactly right.
But in the meantime, if that's where everybody's running off the cliff like lemmings, following one another, as a top producer, you go where the solution is, what you've already got set up, and how you conduct your business. I thought it was so funny because buyers are your strength. And in your service of buyers, it's clear how you secure loyal clients. And by the way, in that very process, secures and dominates you on the listing end of this business.
Right.
Just so that's such a powerful example that I feel like I could go on for a chapter about, and I won't. But that in of itself, just that speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last question. I'm going to say those books one more time for everybody, and then we're going to go to the last question. So the books were, oh my gosh, I've totally forgotten. Remind me what the books were. They
The
were the one about
12-week
the
year.
blessings, the 12-week year, and
And
then
right now, and this is ever changing because I read through them that go on. The next one is Thrive. But right now I'm reading Speak the Blessings, send your words in the directions you want your life to go.
that's it.
Because
Yes, words.
your words, what you say, your brain automatically follows. And that's probably one of the biggest ahas in my life that I've learned, is because I've really worked hard not to go down a negative alley. And you can quickly turn and go there. And so by never giving word of what you're fearing, because fear just, once you put it out, there's no pulling back. So I really, every morning, I've got my I ams, what I am, what I can do right there. And
Wow.
and
Yeah.
I'm going to, it's hyper focus and for me is to keep focused on what I can do.
Well, when you talk about words, words are how we map the world. And it's funny, we talk about in negotiating or when talking to people, meeting them where they are, because a lot of times as agents, we try to direct things, but people are going to resist that until we've met them where they are. In meeting where they are, we also got to meet ourselves where we are. And it's powerful in when we watch our words or even listen to the words of other people, it says a lot about how and what they're thinking. And you can identify things you didn't even see about yourself in the words that you use. And in shifting the words, shifts the way your mind thinks and shifts the action that shifts the outcome,
Mm-hmm. It's
which is what you just said, but just to
exactly right.
rephrase it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, last question. Of all of this that we have talked about, if, which I highly doubt will happen, but if everyone listening forgets everything about this conversation, what would you hope the one thing is that they take away?
You can do what you make up your mind to do. It's not impossible. And whether it's the 12-week year or charting where you're tracking it, if you just do baby bites to get you there, you can achieve it. I think the big thing is reminding all of us we're all running a different race. And in that race, their success may not look like my success. I just wanted to do what no one else had done here. And, it's worked. Will someone do it bigger and better? Likely. But it takes a lot of work and commitment, and I'll be happy for them.
That's awesome.
May cry
Marilyn
for a little
Wright.
bit.
No, go ahead, say that again.
I may whine for a little bit, but I'll get over
Do
it.
what you got to do, own it, be real with yourself, don't lie, but let's get through it, refocus, and keep making good stuff. Get on the journey for the life that you want and keep making it happen because dreams do come true.
That's right. Dreams do come true.
Marilyn Wright, Asheville, North Carolina, not with one Sotheby's, with Sotheby's International Realty. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you, and thank you for being on.
Well, it's such an honor, and kudos for your success. I mean, you've lived the same thing, going through the different steps to where you are today. So congratulations to you as well.
Thank you.